So.
Chronic what codes of Narnia?
See, I can't help it.
Mr. Pimple's red vines equals crazy delicious.
Hey, this is Megan
And Sue in the restricted section.
and today we are going to be doing the Art of Books tag.
And this was created by Brushing Bookends. And they also tagged us.
Yes.
So thank you, ladies. We'll link their video down below. Go check them out.
And while we do this, we are going to be drinking this Hefeweizen, which you have to say like you're angry,
And
from Casey Bier Co.
yeah. And it's a Bavarian style wheat ale. I think that this company, they're obviously located in Kansas City, but I think they do like traditional style
German beers.
Oh, this tells you exactly how to pour it. Tilt glass and pour. Swirl last 2 ounces to rouse yeast. Pour yeast into glass.
Okay,
All right, let's try it.
let's
Tilt
do this.
glass.
Tilt
pour.
and pour.
You have to save the last 2 ounces.
Swirl it.
And then pour it.
Pour it. All right.
There it is. Our Hefeweizen.
I don't make the rules, all right? I just follow them.
It tastes like a Hefeweizen.
Pretty good Hefeweizen.
It tastes good. I like it.
Yeah, I dig it. I'm into it.
This tag, as the title would imply, has to do with art as well as books. Megan from Brushing Bookends is an artist, and I know that Alessandra is a makeup artist. I'm not sure if she does other kinds of arts. I'm just like what the fuck is wrong with me today? I cannot speak.
It's difficult. Having some difficulty.
Yeah, so they're both artists, is what I'm trying to say.
They do the art things. Make pretty stuff.
And they read books. So, the first question is colored pencil layering. In colored pencils, layering tones gradually build up a drawing using several colors.
What book had several complex layers to the plot?
And I feel like I use this book for this type of question all the time, so you're probably tired of hearing of it. But I chose A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. Yeah, that book is very complex, lots of different characters, lots of different things going on. It's a little difficult at first to keep track of everyone, but it's really, really good.
I said The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood because there's a lot of story within the story in that book, and it's fairly complex, and it is brilliant, and it gave me a huge book hangover.
For some reason, when you said it gave me a huge, I just thought you were going to say boner. It gave me a huge
I do kind of have a lady boner for Margaret Atwood's writing, so yes, huge lady boner.
Next question is charcoal blending. Blending is done to create smooth transitions between darker and lighter areas of drawing.
What is a book where the light and dark blend to each side?
So I chose Fledgling by OCTAVIA BUTLER because the main character, Shori, is a bit of a gray area there.
She's complex.
She's not a bad person.
No.
Slash vampire. I don't think. But just the nature of being a vampire means she kind of has to do like some questionable things.
Yeah, I feel like just being a vampire makes you inherently morally ambiguous.
Yeah.
And I said The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey because the main character in that, whose name I've suddenly forgotten, Melanie, thank you, is a zombie, and that I think also makes you inherently, morally ambiguous, and so she's a little bit of a gray area throughout the whole book, and then particularly because of a decision that she makes toward the end of the book, I think that kind of furthers that whole.
She becomes a bit more sinister.
Yeah, but even still, you still kind of root for her.
Yeah.
The
next question is pen and ink, crosshatching, parallel lines drawn at different angles so that the quantity, thickness, and spacing of the lines will create the illusion of volume.
What is your favorite book series with the most volumes?
And I don't read a lot of series, and I certainly don't read them if they have a lot of volumes, usually.
Same.
But I do remember reading the Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed it at the time. I don't know, I haven't read it since I was like 12.
I went ahead and went with Game of Thrones because I have a love-hate relationship with George R.R., my buddy, George R.R. Martin.
Your buddy, your frenemy?
My frenemy. But that is it's a good series, and it has probably the most volumes of any series that I have read. So, except for maybe Harry Potter, but...
Oh yeah, it does have quite a few volumes.
Yeah.
Murphy, why just when we start filming? Why?
Murph. Nerfle. Noodle, come here.
Next is marker, permanent. Markers are known for their permanent lines.
What is a book that is permanently drawn in your mind? Grapes.
And I said The Chrysalids by John Wyndham. I read this last year, and I really liked it. It just was kind of... Oh, bumped your little noggin.
Bump your noggin, dude.
It was just kind of... Uh-oh. Like haunting in a way, and...
My dog's having some difficulty here.
Let's call them Quiggles. Murphy.
Noodle. Alright.
Yeah, The Chrysalids was kind of haunting and just so interesting. Like, I still think about it and think about, like, what the fuck was going on there at the end. Like, I wanted a sequel showing, like, where they were going at the end.
Yeah.
It just, it's stuck in my brain. And I want to read some more John Wyndham.
I said The Handmaid's Tale, again by Margaret Atwood. I didn't realize I had two of her on here, but I mean, I feel like no one's surprised by that. But again, I feel like that book really highlights the worst case scenario, like what could happen if just a few things go a little bit differently. And I think that that's why it's so haunting to me, is that I don't feel like it's really that far-fetched.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's a good warning, and it's also, I mean, it says a lot of things about what it's like to be a woman, and so yeah, I feel like that's part of the reason why it's so haunting to me. It's just that I really don't think it's that far outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
So.
Excuse me, Murphy. I'm sorry. Did I deeply offend you?
It shouldn't be deeply offending to him because he toots all the time.
His face is like covered in dirt.
I know, I pet him and now my hands feel gritty. What did you do? Did someone knock you down? Did one of your sisters knock you down, bud?
Next is acrylic paint, vibrant. Acrylic paint is known for its vibrant colors.
What is a book with a vibrant cover or character?
So I went with a vibrant cover, and I went with Operation Pure Boredom by Dan Martin, because the cover of this is just amazing.
Fun.
You're like,
yeah.
You're like, what's with the banana?
Why is there a banana there?
I gotta know what's going on.
I gots to know.
And the book was really good too.
It does not disappoint.
So.
Yeah. And you do find out what the fuck is up with the banana.
You do
if you read the book.
You do indeed.
So read it. I went with a vibrant character, and I said McMurphy from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, because McMurphy is just very big, he's loud, his personality takes up a lot of space, and he's very vibrant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next is watercolor. Wash is a watercolor technique resulting in a semi-transparent layer of color.
What book had a transparent plot?
And I said Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and kind of just like the whole Window Chronicles series, which I did enjoy. I'm not saying they were bad, but they're fairy tale retellings for one thing, which I feel like is gonna be a little predictable because we all know the fairy tales.
Right, we know how this
follow.
Go. Yeah.
Follow the plots of the fairy tales a bit. They're obviously very different, but. Yeah, and then it was also just kind of your typical, like, hero
Right.
Teenage girl saves the day.
Right.
Because what can't teenage girls do?
Regulate their hormones.
Well, there's that. Well, she's part cyborg. She doesn't have to worry about
She's probably fine. Yeah, that was the worst part about being a teenage girl, I think. This is a sidebar. Because I knew how absolutely irrational I was being, and I could do literally fuck all to stop it.
Really?
It was like I was watching myself. And it was like
I feel like
insane.
I was not that bad as a teenager.
I was pretty
I
bad.
had like a couple of outbursts, but for the most part I was fine.
I was pretty bad, but I feel like part of that was my environment. But part of it was the, you know, crazy juice. Okay.
Did you say yours?
No. So mine was The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, because the foreshadowing in that was incredibly obvious, and so it kind of just told you what was going to happen.
Next is oil paint. Oil paints are thick and can keep their shape to help build the illusion of an object with texture.
Name a character or creature that you remember vividly because of how well they were described.
I went with the alien from the book Infected by Scott Sigler. There was a specific scene in that book that was described so well and was so gruesome that it actually made me feel a little bit physically ill.
It was fucking brutal.
Which has never happened to me before or since in a book. And I never read the rest of that series. I think there's at least 1 or 2 other books in the series.
I think there's 2 more, because I have them on my Kindle and I've read them all, and they are all really good.
Yeah, I need to read the rest of it, because I read that one and then I liked it, and then I just never... I'm bad about just not reading the series.
So I said Ohan from The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, because he really stood out to me in that book with so many different characters. He really stuck out to me, and I think it was not only the description of his like physical presence, but like the description of his people and his culture and his personality.
Yeah.
I think
I wanted to cuddle him so bad.
So bad. So bad.
So bad.
Yes. Murphy's grunting at me. So bad.
He's like, you don't cuddle anyone but me.
Excuse me, Mimi, but I have something to say about cuddles.
So next is digital paintings, new age style of art media.
What is your favorite new release book?
And I don't have an answer, because I don't really pay attention to new releases. I think the newest book I've read recently has been Future Home of the Living God by Louise Erdrich, I think.
Yeah.
And I didn't really care for it that much, so...
I think the newest release book I read was The Power by Naomi Alderman, and that came out in 2017. And I did really like it. But I don't really read a lot of new releases, and like here's how out of touch I am with that. I thought that Born a Crime was a new release, and it came out in 2016. So
3 years old.
Yeah. So I don't really know of any new releases that I've read lately.
So next is Canvas. Nothing better than a blank canvas to start drawing out your ideas.
What book had the best original ideas?
I think Murphy's has like artist's block or something. He's like,
he's like
canvas.
Got his face on the table. He's like, I can't.
Okay, so book with the best original ideas. I went with Dolly City by Orly Castell Bloom. The book was fucking bonkers. I've never read anything like it before or since. It's just like, what the fuck?
And right along those lines, I said The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins, because, again, like, what the fuck? But yeah, so that book had a lot of what the fuck moments. It had a lot of strange characters. The ending was, like, just when I thought the book could not get any weirder, it totally opened a new dimension on weird.
Like literally, sort of?
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, but I love that book.
Okay, so the last question is paper, scrap paper. Sometimes you have to scrap a drawing and start anew.
What book should have been scrap paper and reworked?
And I said the book Empire, a zombie novel by David Dunwoody. Unfortunately, I like this book just was kind of a mess to me. It had very little, if any, redeeming qualities. And I mean, could it even be saved? Maybe. It had an interesting premise, I think. There's too many characters. None of the characters are particularly interesting or likable. And then the plot just turns into a big fucking mess in like the second half of it, where you're like, what the hell?
What are you even doing?
So it just needs, it maybe just needs scrapped altogether.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really any reworking it, but yeah.
I said The Q by Basma Abdel Aziz because I felt like the premise was very interesting, but the book was just a slog. It was so boring. And I mean, I realize it's a book about a Q, but like, you could have done.
Sound like the most compelling thing.
No, but I feel like it could have been pretty interesting, and like the synopsis was fairly interesting, but the book itself didn't really do much for me. So I feel like there could have been ways to make that a little bit more compelling.
Should we tag in this?
We should tag Who Likes Art?
Who likes art?
Camille from The Chameleon.
Yeah, Camille. We tag you.
Because you're who I think of when I think of art.
I also think of Becky Bookworm.
Yeah.
When I think of art. So we tag you.
Becky Bookworm.
And then we're also going to tag Janelle.
From All the World's a Page. All the World's a Page.
I keep wanting to say her old channel name. Yeah, so it was the book art, what was it called?
The Art of Books.
The Art of Books
Art
tag.
of Books tag.
And this Hefeweizen.
Hefeweizen.
It was pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah. I don't know if it tastes like a traditional German
Hefeweizen,
but it tastes good.
Yeah, I like it. I like Hefeweizens in the summer because I feel like they're really, they still have some body, but they're still kind of refreshing.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. Let us know what you thought of these books, any of these books we talked about.
Yeah, and if you want to do this tag, if we didn't tag you, just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And there will be some links down below where you can find us elsewhere on the internet.
If you haven't subscribed yet, please do.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.